Hi everybody, it is time to do some fun virtual painting at home. This week it's all about watercolor and you'll be working on a color wheel that you will leave at home. You do not need to bring it to school until it's finished next week. Okay, so first off, what supplies do you need? Let's take a look. You're gonna need some watercolor paints. You will need something to mix your paint in. You can use a saucer or paper plate. I do have water in mine, but I would probably suggest you just get a cup to put some water in and a brush. So the brushes that come with the paint palettes are usually not that great. So you should have already picked up a brush from me to use at home. I do need these back, so take care of them. And then of course, your color wheel. Now this is printed on watercolor paper. It's thicker, it's made to absorb the water. This won't work very well if it's just regular copy paper, okay? The first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna work on our primary colors, all right? Which is yellow, blue, and red. The reason we're not going to do our colors right next to each other, it might be tempting to say, oh, I did the yellow, now I want to do my yellow orange. The reason is when you put those colors next to one another, that water is going to reach out and it wants to touch another set of water. They're attracted to each other like magnets. And then you'll get a blend and it'll kind of puddle and it won't look very nice right here. So whenever you're doing watercolor, you're going to do one area at a time. Okay, you're always going to have a little space, and once this dries, it'll be fine. I can go back to it. I just did the yellow one, and the main reason I start with yellow is because it's the lightest, and as I go to mix, it might become a little bit dirty in here, so I like to start with yellow. If your yellow also starts to have some contamination from other paints, just add a little bit of water to it, and you'll see a little bit of green popping up on this one. And then I will grab some paper towels, and I will just blot that out, okay? It's a good way to clean them up. You don't want to do it all the time because you'll end up losing out on a lot of paint, but you can do it every once in a while, especially the yellow. Okay, so let's do this red. I'm going to get some water, and this wakes up the paint or activates it. Okay, we're going to set some in there. And then I am going to do the outline first. So one thing is I don't go straight up to the line. I start here. Do you see I'm kind of away from it? And I kind of push the paint up to that line. And I'm using the tip of this brush. And as you can tell with watercolor, everything looks a little watered down. It's going to be lighter. If you want it to be darker, then you need to let it dry, and then you'll add another layer on top. Those are called washes, okay, or layers. And really, watercolor is all about patience. I'm going to get a little bit more paint. And then you know what? It's not very comfortable for me to put my hand in this direction. So you know what? I always tell you guys, turn the paper so you're comfortable. I'm going to come in at another angle. I'm going to add a little bit more. Now, if you find, you know what, you've got way too much water on your brush, you've got a couple of options. You can start pushing that water all across the shape so it blends it out, or just dab some off on your paper towel and it'll soak it up for you. Now, I'm going to turn mine again so it's comfortable. I'm going to fill in this. Now, one thing I don't want to have are these little blobs of red. What do I do to get rid of them? Well, I just lightly move it around. It's really babysitting the paint because the water is going to want it to move a lot. So before it dries, I'm going to move it wherever I want. And when I'm happy with it, I just let it set. So it's important that you don't move your paper while the paint is still wet because it will move your paint too. Okay, I'm pretty happy with that. I think I could move maybe a couple of things, but I'm pretty good with it. All right. Now in this light, you know what? It has kind of a purpley look. Doesn't have a super red look. I might go in later and add another layer or another wash to it. Or when it dries, I might decide that I like the color. So what you're going to do on the first virtual day is you're going to get your primary colors down. You're going to get your yellow, your red, and your blue. okay? You could probably even get your green, orange, and violet. Those are your secondary colors, okay? The reason why is, look, there's still spaces in between them, okay? They won't touch. And then let it dry. Your next virtual day, then you'll go in with your tertiary colors. And those tertiaries are when you mix a primary and a secondary together. All right, and I want to show you how to do that. So let's say I want to do, let's see one I have not done a neighbor to. How about blue-green? So I'm going to add my blue. I'm going to put some blue in here. And I'm putting it in a little separate area. That's where your plate or your saucer comes in. And I'm going to add a little bit of the green to it. Gonna get a little bit more green. Okay, until I feel like I have a pretty good blue-green. And you can always check on that color wheel that is glued in your sketchbook, and it will show you exactly where everything should be placed and the intensity of your blue-green. If you're like, is it too blue? Is it too green? Just check that color wheel. And you know what's nice about the watercolor is if you decide when it dries it's a little too green or a little too blue, just mix it again and do it right over it. Watercolor artists do this a lot. This is how they get really beautiful layers. Maybe they'll start with the more green side of a blue-green, and then they'll add a little bit more blue to it, and you get those really pretty gradients or those values. You know how we've been talking about how our values go from really dark to light? That's how you would do it with the watercolors. You would just do it in layers. Okay. And then I have a blue-green. I really feel like that's probably leaning a little heavy on the green side. So you know what? When it dries, then I'm going to probably do another one. I'll mix it up again, but I'll add a little bit more blue. The reason I want it to dry first is if I have too many layers of wet paint, that paper is going to get so saturated with water that it's actually going to ripple. Okay, so I want it to dry. Okay, so you're going to do your primaries, your secondaries, and then on another day, your second virtual day, you'll get these tertiaries. The tertiaries that are blue, green, green, yellow, they always have two names, two words, yellow, orange, those are your tertiaries. Okay, on your Friday, your third virtual day, you're going to go ahead and fill in this pyramid. The colors are chosen on the example in your sketchbook. You do not have to follow that. I want you to choose whatever you would like to put in, as long as each one of these sections is a different color. I want you to play around, mix some things, see what you like. Okay? All right, guys, happy watercoloring. And remember, when you're done with your paints, leave the lid open. You don't want to close the lid right away because the water will stay in here and it'll get really sticky. Leave this open for it to dry out. And brushes are so easy to take care of with watercolor. Rinse them under water, like running water in your faucet really good, and then squeeze that water out and just let them air dry. Okay? All right, guys, have fun. Bye.